And welcome to Light Years. Andy Lou, I am back.
Dude, you look
How
so
you doing,
happy.
brother?
You look so happy. What's going on?
Vacation, it's good. It rejuvenates the soul. I had a good time. Got out of the country, went overseas,
Ooh.
went over to Europe, saw some family. I was a little worried how the flight would go with a toddler. Went better than no, that's not true. The flight there was literally the worst experience of my life, but the flight back was not. And anyone who has a small child can relate to this. You just have a way of zoning out the bad that is like, it's very hard to relate to it any other way.
I'm just surprised that you made it there and back. I'm not gonna lie. When I saw that you were bringing the kid, I couldn't do it. You got any cool stories?
Actually, I have one basketball related story. I want to share this one. Okay. So I went to Europe. And for those who followed, like I have family who lives in the UK and in France, and like grandparents, mom's side, that sort of thing. Anyway, as I was wandering through, I wanted to go into one of the main Nike stores, like one of those like 4 or 5 story ones, because I was just curious. I was curious if I could find some like obscure sneakers for myself, but putting that aside, I was curious like what the NBA display would look like. And so it kind of looked like you'd expect. Like most of the players they highlighted were the ones you'd expect. So like what jerseys were the big highlighted ones? Steph, LeBron, Giannis, Luka, Ja. But there was a 6th player caught me off guard. I'm going to just ask you to take a guess. You don't know. Just anyone listening to this, he hasn't heard of this. So those first 5 I listed are probably 5 of the 6 or 7 names you would have guessed if I said, right?
Give me a Western Conference or Eastern Conference. Let me narrow it halfway.
I give you 2 hints. Eastern Conference, and they're an active player. It's not MJ.
Right.
So it's not Kobe, it's not MJ.
Okay. It is Donovan Mitchell.
No, it's a good guess though. You're kind of close.
I figured guard. My second guess would have been Jalen Brunson. After that,
that would have been a great guess. Honestly, my first guess would have been like Tatum, but the fact that I'm like playing it off as obscure throws that off. DeMar DeRozan.
Oh, that okay. That does make sense.
It does. It makes sense because if you know anything about traveling abroad, they think the Bulls are like Real Madrid. They think they're like the biggest deal, and it reminds me how big Michael Jordan is. Like, if we're being honest, like you and me, the Bulls are trash.
No.
They've been terrible most of your life,
right?
The only reason I can say they haven't been terrible most of my life is because I'm a little older than you, so I remember MJ.
Yep.
But basically, they've been terrible for 25 years, minus a year and a half of Derrick Rose. But they still carry weight. They still carry weight as if they are like a glamour franchise. And I really think like nothing displays how big a deal Michael Jordan is as that fact, because I guarantee you if the Warriors suck for 25 years, we're not going to see Warrior jerseys all over the place because of Steph Curry.
All right.
I don't think like there's no Cavs jerseys there. As big a deal as LeBron is, it's pivot to Laker jerseys, Wow. I don't know. It just sticks in my mind like that the dude literally is the biggest thing that ever happened in the NBA. In that he makes like DeMar DeRozan like matter,
Wow. And I think DeMar DeRozan being like plays like 5% of who MJ was.
Right.
Back in his day.
The highlights kind of look similar. Yeah.
Wow, that is amazing. DeMar DeRozan, who I think I saw a post the other day from the most overrated players in the NBA, and DeMar DeRozan was up there. I think that's about right. DeMar DeRozan being promoted across the globe alongside Steph and LeBron is insane.
Steph, Braun, Luka, Giannis, DeRozan.
Wow.
The Ja one cracked me up, but like at least we knew Ja was like Ja's kind of we'll see how long that jersey's there, but he had his moment.
Wow. Shout out to London or wherever you were, France.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was all over the place. I'll keep it to myself. But what I was gonna say, you know what I got to watch on the flight, right?
What?
I watched the Underrated doc.
Yes, sir.
I watched a lot of things, but it was a long flight. But you know what? I was so excited to come on this pod and hate on the documentary. I was because I just, Steph's my favorite player, but I can't co-sign making documentaries before you retire.
I also think, I'm going to throw this out there because I'm with you. I don't like documentaries because I don't feel like they are anything but the actual person telling me how we should view them. As much as I love the Michael Jordan documentary,
a little bit of a puff piece.
It's just all it is to me, right? What I would prefer to watch or read is something done by someone who's good at it, obviously, who's done it before, who's
third party
journal. Yeah, like they're just great at it. I mean, 30 for 30 used to do a lot of that stuff, right? Growing up, you'd read history books on a lot of that stuff, and some of it was great, some of it was not. But I do think nowadays these documentaries are just okay. Is this just going to be Steph telling us how great he is for 2 hours? I'm all for it, Sam. I'm with you. I'm going to let you get your take off on it. I'm all for it, but I am skeptical, right? I was skeptical before going and watching this as well.
I was also skeptical, but my take on it wasn't actually a documentary, like in the sense of life story. It was more a piece on his high school, college years, which one was fun to watch because you saw footage you hadn't seen. Two, the Davidson run was pretty cool. And it's kind of, I don't want to say it's forgotten, but it's like in the scheme of things we care about, it's not the first or the second or the third thing I think about with Steph Curry, right? And so I walked away from it, like the softy I am. Like I can't hate. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed seeing video stuff I hadn't seen, and I enjoyed the fact that it was really more focused on kind of like the come up instead of trying to actually be a biopic. So I can get behind it.
Sorry. Keep going. I think he did it in a way that I agree with you. It's less so about who he is in his NBA career, more so about who he has been, who he has been growing up. Because, when Marcus wrote the Rise, Golden,
miraculous,
and everything about him, right, and everything about him becoming who he is today. I think a lot of people at the time really thought, oh, this dude's always been great. His dad was an athlete. He was always going to be a superstar. People don't remember the thing with Steph Curry is he wasn't LeBron coming in. He wasn't even Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's number 2 pick. It wasn't even Kevin Durant. He wasn't even like Blake Griffin in his own damn draft. Guys, there were serious questions about Steph from day one. Like even from, I think even Warriors fans, even myself. So it is pretty cool.
Well, it's like if we want to play that game, the idea that a 6'2" guard who kind of has questionable athleticism is going to change. Like no one saw that coming. Everyone's lying. Said they saw it coming. So we know all that's true. But you know what I kind of want to talk about is I've been enjoying the Steph Curry media tour. June was Warrior legend Chris Paul's 61 media tour. July has been the Underrated media tour. I haven't seen Steph do this much promotion for anything in a long time. You saw the Hot Ones.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's on Good Morning America this week. He's done various interviews. He was on Real Ones with Logan and those. Like he's just doing the tour.
Golfing. He won the ACC. I mean that didn't hurt. That didn't hurt.
No.
He did the Patrick
of
Mahomes,
course,
Travis Kelce.
Of course, by the way, of course he hits the most improbable game winner in that tournament.
Right?
The dude's just just like that. But anyway, yeah.
I mean, you're everything. It's been all Steph, nothing basketball, nothing on the court related. I think it's funny. Before you get to your next point, I think it's funny related to Chris Paul too, because Chris Paul did a press tour on his book coming out, and
he got traded twice during it.
He got traded twice during it, and he's just out here looking miserable talking about his book, and now he's kind of. It's a big difference between Steph. What I'm trying to say is, there's a big difference between Steph doing a press tour and CP3 doing a press tour. I think people care more about one of those guys doing a press tour. So,
yeah, and what I was going to say, by the way, CP did a live pod with Russillo during the whole thing, and I listened to it and watched it on one of my flights, and it was the funniest thing ever because it was on the 3 days he was a Wizards player. So it was like he had no clues going to the Warriors. He was just lamenting like the trade and like how these things happen. And then like 3 days later he gets traded again. It was entertaining. But back to Steph. I think what's interesting is how consistent he's been on the same answers related to last season and next season. He's kind of gone into it over and over again, talking about how they didn't have any variety to the way they played last year. Like ultimately they just ran and chucked threes. That's all they had, which, you know, we did about 100 podcasts last year in which our general theme was all they're doing is running and chucking threes. They have no offense. They don't do anything other than that. And I think it's interesting. He keeps talking about how Chris Paul will give them a change up, give them a different look, give them the ability to play more than one style of basketball. And to me, like that makes me really confident for next year because it sounds so focused with what they want to do. And I think about it compared to this year, it seems like a guy who's like, last year we wasted our time. We blew it. We did all this stuff. I have a very clear idea of how I want next year to go, and I'm going to make sure it happens.
I have never heard Steph that locked in to what he wants. At least he doesn't tell us. He has
front facing.
Yes, ever. He has never done it. Not once. And outside of what you're saying about having a different look to give defenses, he's also talked so much about having more adults in the locker room. And that always, always, always shocks me, especially this offseason, because he said it in every interview, and Steph doesn't say anything that matters. Unless until I think now, to your point about Chris Paul, number one, and then number two, leadership in the locker room. I think that'll be fascinating because I'm a little more skeptical than you on the Paul stuff. No idea how that's going to work with Draymond. You got two hot heads that I think could easily, turn this season down the drain, but still proven veteran winning leaders. And that's not what the Warriors had last season. Like, to me, it felt so much like Steph just really got sick of not having dudes in their 30s trying to win a championship. I think that was his thing. Or late 20s, right? Prime, late 20s, early 30s, guys that are bought into an agendas.
Yeah. I mean, like Looney's Looney's still in his mid-20s.
He's still 21. It's actually absurd. It doesn't make any sense.
I can even legally drink, exactly. But it's like, but to your point, like it's about guys who are over the me phase of their career, and they're all about like winning. He got tired of dealing with dudes who weren't that way. The thing that's interesting to me about this whole thing that we're talking about here is it's like you said, he's more locked into it than I've ever heard him. And I kind of want to respond to this real quick. I listened to your last pod with Dumas, by the way. Shout out Jason, friend of the show. Appreciate it. You're always welcome on. And you said it a couple times. You think I'm more optimistic about the Chris Paul thing than you are. I just want to explain myself real quick on that one. The reason I'm optimistic on it is because of everything Steph is saying. It doesn't feel like he hasn't considered all the variables going into it. And he's coming into it with I'm going to make this work. I'm not going to let this play out and be the nice guy on the wall. I'm going to make it work. And the second part of me, which makes me super optimistic about it, is quite frankly, part of the Chris Paul calculus is he's an expiring contract. If it doesn't work, he will not be on this team after the All-Star break. Is that a gamble? It's a huge gamble. Mm-hmm. But I feel like as a Warrior fan and someone looking at this, you're playing with house money because on paper, he buys into the second unit role. He gives you that additional playmaker, and he elevates the aspects of the roster, which quite frankly sucked last year. And if he doesn't, you're moving on from him to different players because he's an expiring contract and teams will always take that. So obviously you don't want the worst case scenario where you're selling him for like an eighth man. Right. Like you're kind of hoping to get better value than that, honestly. But it does feel like something that I think is lower risk than you're painting it to be.
There's a level of LeBron GMing personality here. And I think the more I think about it, the more I think it's fascinating because it's not necessarily Steph's style, but he's going into year 35. He's only got a few more years left, and Steph's style himself has always worked. But you're going to have to make some changes, right? Especially when things don't work, and they didn't last season. They can always do what you talked about, or what the Lakers did, kind of staying with that comparison where they traded Russell Westbrook. It just didn't work, and then they traded him, and it all worked out. So, yeah, I'm with you. Ooh, what do we have? You had a quote up there. Throw that back up. All right.
Pete's throwing this up. There's for you. Have you guys heard of beautiful basketball anime out right now called First Slam Dunk? It's perfect for the offseason, and it glorifies rebounding and passing and vibes.
He said it's for me. It is for me. Number one, it's an anime. I don't know it. So Pete, thanks for the recommendation. I will put that on the queue. Got a bunch of K-dramas I got to get to first, but it glorifies rebounding, passing, and vibes. That is unbelievable.
This sounds like a loony anime.
Does Steve Kerr know about this? Because if he doesn't, he needs to figure it out. Oh my God. Oh, I see what this is. It's a movie. Okay, I see.
I like it.
Box office $263 million. It's making more than Barbie.
Ooh, I might have to check it out.
I don't think it. Are you a Barbie guy, by the way? Are you?
I have not been. Honestly, I want to see Barbie and Oppenheimer, but it's not going to happen.
It's not going.
There's zero chance I'll see either before they get to a streaming service. Like I'm just gonna be shooting honest. It's not happening. So. But tell me your takes, everyone. Tell me your takes.
That's where we miss Mikas. That's where we miss Mikas with the takes. I will. I haven't watched any of them. I need to watch Mission Impossible, but we'll get on that. We'll get on the first slam dunk.
We are in the dead part of the season, so we have time. We have time to get into it. We'll do our Barbie breakdown in a week or something. Should we talk about Dame real quick?
Let's go.
All right, I'm going to share the quote. So was it Thursday or was it Friday? I can't quite remember, but it was the end of the week. From Chris Haynes here, full NBA memo sent to 30 teams regarding rhetoric on trade requests by Dame. Recent media reports state that Damian Lillard's agent, Aaron Goodwin, called multiple NBA teams to warn them against trading Lillard because Lillard only desired trade destinations Miami. Goodwin also made public comments indicating Lillard would not fully perform the services called for under his contract if traded to other teams. We interviewed Goodwin and Lillard and spoke to several other teams. Goodwin denied that, blah, blah. We advised Goodwin and Lillard that any future comments made privately to teams or publicly suggesting Lillard would not fully perform the services in which under his player contract in the event of a trade, subject Lillard to discipline from the NBA.
Man.
We also advise the Players Association that any similar comments from players or agents will be subject going forward. Adam Silver growing up?
Whoa. I thought this was hilarious. I saw this tweet, and I think it's funny because it's Chris Haynes who's obviously tapped into Damian Lillard. This is the first time, Samuel, correct me if I'm wrong, that it feels like the NBA commissioner is standing up to what is, I think, player empowerment now on steroids to where it kind of is stupid. It's not fun for the fans It's not fun for anyone except for maybe the players who end up not being happy anyway after being traded to their next destination after a year. So I think this is the first time. I think it's pretty cool. I don't know how much of this matters, but I do think when Dame came out, I think the funniest part of all of this is Dame tried to tell us how loyal he was for so long.
Mr. Loyalty is the one who gets popped, right?
I know. And it's hilarious to me, and it's kind of sad because you were the guy that played the loyalty game for so long, and now you're the one that Adam Silver is saying, no, we're not. Like, couldn't they have just done this for James Harden? I feel like he deserves it more.
Oh,
Kevin
he definitely
Durant,
deserves it. I mean,
right?
he
Kevin
definitely
Durant,
deserves
another
it.
one.
And to your point, I agree. I'm curious if it matters because it feels to me like it's 4 years too late. It feels you can tie it to the overall CBA. The CBA was largely smaller market owners saying, enough. We have to do something. Like, we can't keep players, even if we offer them more money, they find a way to go to a bigger market. This is unfair to us. And you can agree or disagree with them. And I think the truth is probably in the middle. You know, there's definitely some smaller markets who I'm like, all right, it's not like you're trying to do everything to win. Like, let's react, or let's slow down pretending you're a victim here, you know? But there's also small markets who I think run good organizations who just kind of like, yeah, sorry, bro. You're not New York City. You're not Miami. Players don't want to go there, you know? So there's some truth in the middle there. It did feel like the entire CBA was kind of like, what can we do to punish players for not wanting to play in our cities? And this just feels like a continuation of that. It feels like a lot of people who bought the Utah Jazz, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Milwaukee Bucks, like pick your unglamour market. They're like, I spent $2 billion here. You have to at least, I know players aren't dying to live in my city, but enough, like something, right. You know, right. That sort of thing.
Right. It's a little unfair, and I'm not a big Dame guy. I don't love the guy. He's fine. But yeah, comments are thrown in Ben Simmons and Kyrie can do anything all year after every year. And then they finally shut it down on Dame. Now, part of it is maybe they do it to Dame and they release the statement and maybe they discipline him, whatever discipline it is. Maybe it's just a slap on the wrist. But if they do it to Dame, it's kind of like a trickle-down effect to where, yeah, we're going to do it to everyone else too, right? Because doing it to Ben Simmons is obvious. Like, guy's a joke, right? Like that.
Well, I also,
it doesn't mean much.
I also think this kind of speaks to the NBA screwing the whole thing up. Like, you're right to say, like, oh, you're going to do it to Dame after you did nothing to Ben Simmons or Kyrie? Like, yeah. Why do you think Dame's representation felt comfortable doing this? So maybe you should have done something 4 years ago when all these guys were doing all this stuff. That's kind of how I feel about it.
His agent coming out, and this was weeks ago. This wasn't recent. His agent coming out and saying like, "Hey, Dame's not gonna show up if you're gonna trade for him." Was now okay. Let me ask you this. Does this end of the day change what everyone thinks will happen? That Dame will get traded to Miami?
Probably not. And I think that's the most interesting part to me. I know they're trying to force him to Miami. It kind of seems like teams think Dame's closer to Bradley Beal than they do. He's closer to Steph Curry. That's the vibe I'm getting because it seems like Boston comes to mind. Boston should have traded for Dame.
Yes.
And they paid a lot of money to Jaylen Brown, and good. I like Jaylen I don't know if I like him that much, but like I like Jaylen. I think he's a really good player. Yeah. He's 26, but there's a lot of teams who are looking at it. It's like $60 million for Dame when he's 36. I don't want that, Yeah. And And I think it's really suppressing his market more than his agent is, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah.
I have no sources on that. I can't prove that to be true, but it does feel like the bigger impediment on Dame is like, if you're trading for Dame, you kind of have to believe you're a real contender, right? You have to believe that like Dame is the final piece to the puzzle.
Yeah.
I can understand why Miami wants him. Miami's like kind of there, but they don't have a guy who can like get a bucket, right? Makes total sense. You agree with me?
Yep. I mean, Miami's there, Boston's there. Those
Boston's the other one that's obvious to me. But like, how many other teams do you think like Dame is the missing piece for?
I mean, like, if Philly wasn't such a mess, like I throw that in there. But
he's better. He's better than Harden. Yeah,
You're right. I throw that in there. But I mean, you're right. Milwaukee's doesn't really have any moves left, right? So that's kind of.
I'm sure they'd like him, but yeah, they're not.
New York's kind of. Are they waiting more on a wing type of younger guy, right? Or they got Jalen Brunson there.
Okay, you put him on New York. What are they? A 6 seed?
Second round team. Yeah, they're a second round team.
They're already a second round team.
Like that's it. I mean, I would say that's it. Yeah, they're not beating the Bucks, right? They're not beating a Giannis. They're not beating the Celtics. You're right. You're right. I think the comparison for him may be closer to Beal than he is to Steph. I think it's fascinating. How good is he? Does he actually move the needle that much for most of these guys, or is it a contract thing? But that's the Beal situation where.
I think it's that. He's obviously good. Everyone would want him. But is he good enough to like trade half your team and half your draft picks?
Which goes back to the Chris Haynes tweet, the memo from Adam Silver. The player empowerment stuff is really, it works out really well when you're LeBron James.
Yeah,
when you're a top 5 player of all time, it works out really well.
It works out for Kevin Durant too.
I was just gonna say, so half the time it's worked out for Kevin Durant. He won 2 titles with the Warriors, but also it didn't work out for Kevin Durant though, right? He went to Brooklyn, and we'll see about Phoenix. Phoenix looks loaded; they look very good, but we don't know. So I would say with KD, it's like maybe a hit and a miss. So he's batting 500, and then you're talking about all these other guys. James Harden's one. You go down the line of these guys. Bradley Beal's now traded. Joel Embiid's going to request a trade soon. I mean, it's just all these guys that are forcing people to trade them, and they go somewhere, and it just doesn't work out. Russell Westbrook, Kyrie Irving, these guys are asking out every 6 months, and it doesn't matter, right? They're just not good enough for it to matter. So I don't know. Maybe Adam Silver's not ahead enough. Good for him. We'll see what he'll actually discipline them with, Sam. I doubt that they actually do anything. What are they? Maybe
that's the other part. I'm like skeptical this is anything more than like a traffic ticket or like I'm sending you to your room.
$50,000 fine. Okay.
William Mitchell goes, absolutely drawing a line with Dame after Kyrie, KD, and Harden experience. Yeah, that's also why it's like hilarious that it feels like a veiled threat, you know?
Yep.
It does.
Yeah.
All right. I saw a funny tweet, or do we call it an X now?
Stop.
I wanted to share this. I didn't even think about this, but all right. Did you know Bill Curley was the final Warriors player to wear number 30 before Steph Curry?
Dude, I didn't even know he was on a team. I'm not going to lie to you. 2001, 10-year-old Andy?
15 games, 15 total games.
Oh, goodness, no shot. I'm not going to lie to you.
It's pretty funny because, like, you know, no one's going to wear number 30 after Steph retires. I don't think that's a hot take. I think we've all acknowledged that's how it's going to go. And it just had me going down memory lane a little bit, you know? Had me kind of thinking, you know, who are your favorite Warriors pre-core dynasty? You know, was Bill Curley on the list?
I got a top 3 for you. I got a top 3 for you. They're pretty. It's straightforward. It's guys that everyone knows because the Warriors have had a lot of bad players. I'm not going to throw Calbert Chaney at you. I'm not going to throw Michael Petrus at you. I'm not going to throw Sarunas Jasikevičius at you. So I'm going to throw guys that I actually enjoyed watching.
Sarunas Marciulionis.
Yeah. Number one, easily number one, Baron Davis by far. Still like watching him play. I think as I get older, I think like he wasn't as good probably as I thought, but growing up watching him, super big combo point guard. Could be a lockdown defender when he wanted to, right?
Didn't turn the ball over.
Yep.
Ever.
Just he was awesome to watch when the Warriors traded for him and he was kind of not great. And then he exploded, we believe, all that stuff. Amazing. So number one, easy for me. Number two, he was the only guy that would get popularity on the Warriors outside of outside of the Bay Area. Jason Richardson, right? Because of the dunk contest. So he was there. Of course, the Warriors didn't have anybody at any All-Star games. Nobody cared but the Warriors. But you had this guy who was the greatest dunker of all time. So number two for me, super easy, Jason Richardson. And number three, you're gonna love this one. Because I was a little bit older when I started watching him. Andris Biedrins. I thought he was gonna be I thought he was gonna be unbelievable because he had this spin move.
The mayor of Manor West.
Oh my. Manor West. Wow, that is a throwback to the old days. Wonder what's Manor West now in SF. Anyway, he was unbelievable. I thought the free throws might have ruined his confidence. Don Nelson got a little weird there near the end, but he got a big contract from the Warriors. Kind of vanished once he got back to Latvia or wherever he's from. But, I loved him.
The current Warriors would love Andris Biedrins because he literally, like, first off, actually knows how to set a screen, actually knows how to roll to the basket, and can make a second pass if he needs to. Literally the epitome of like the rim running big man that they actually want, right? Yeah. Also, not the type of guy who cared if you played 35 minutes or 21 minutes a night. Like it's a nice player.
Yep. And solid defender. Clay would love him. Be his best friend. Be amazing.
I mean, look, I can't tell you how excited I am for the Clay Dario Saric boat Instagram live. It's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to happen in camp or it's going to be more of a like January thing, but it's happening.
Yeah. God. I miss Andres, man. I miss him. Who are your favorites?
So I knew you were going to say Barron, so I didn't go there. I'm going to go with who was my favorite when I was younger, and that's Gilbert Arenas. I was so pissed off when they lost him. I can't, because they got him in the second round. Obviously, he was really good at Arizona, but he was known as a knucklehead for whatever reason. And about a year into the Warriors, he did what good players do, which is figured it out, and he was too good. They had to starting him. Like they didn't want to, and he just outplayed everyone. He was that good. I think he was better than Baron Davis, honestly. And then they lost him after year two, and then they changed the CBA and created the Gilbert Arenas provision to allow you to keep second round picks you had. But like, for my money, I still think he's above Barron in terms of best point guard on the Warriors underneath, number 30, who's obviously number one. It was the only time other than Chris Webber, and I was like 9 years old when the Warriors had Chris Webber and they lost him after 1 year. It's the only time I was like, oh, this is like a real superstar. This is what they look like. This is a guy who can get his at any time. This is a guy who's a little different and who can score on anyone. And like, lo and behold, he did that for the Wizards until his, knee gave out. So for me, Gilbert will always stand in my mind as the guy maybe it ties perfectly because I was like a teenager. I was just so pissed when they lost him, but they didn't really have anyone else. So it was like when you find someone on a garbage team, you like latch onto them more than anything.
Yes,
right?
he was the Monte Ellis before Monte Ellis, and he's a lot better than Monte Ellis ever was. But Monte, Warriors fans loved him because he was the I'm gonna go get buckets type of guy. And then Warriors fans had always felt like you never got that guy. You never got a guy that could just get. I mean, until Steph came along, but Monte was that guy, and then Gilbert was that guy way before.
Did you know Gilbert averaged 29 points and 6 assists on the Wizards. Also throwing up 37% from 3, top 5 in makes. Like he was 24 years old. He had a moment there.
Who is Gilbert Arenas closest to in today's game?
Combo of Dame and Harden, if I'm being honest with you. He's bigger than Dame. And he's not, but like kind of like Harden, but he's not as sloth like as Harden. I think he's a mix of the two of them. I mean, his knee gave out at 25. You know what I mean? Like, but at 24, 25, he was averaging 28 points a game, 29 points a game. Like, like he who knows where his career goes. I kind of think it was on the Dame Harden trajectory where, like a tier below Kobe, that type of thing.
Yeah.
But like, I do think that's the level of player he was. Like he dropped 60 on a LeBron team. Like he's a pretty special player,
Yeah. Also has an interesting podcast.
I love. Yeah, I'm a fan.
Not usually a player
60 on Kobe. My bad. I think it was 40 some on LeBron.
You might have hit on Agent Zero on Hibachi. He also had great nicknames, and that was one where, as a Warriors fan, that you're never gonna get lucky with anything. And of course, the one time they find a guy in the second round that's not a bust, you can't even keep him. Old school Warriors.
Oh, by the way, people in the chat are going, maybe Jamal Murray. I don't hate that comp. I think Jamal's. You know what? By the way, would you rather have Jamal Murray or Donovan Mitchell?
God, that's tough. Probably Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray.
I was like, I'm trying not to yell it because of recency bias, but I feel the same way,
Based on a couple things, I mean, number one for me is I think he's a much better off-ball player. That matters a lot more when you're playing with Nikola Jokic. Donovan Mitchell's never played with anyone close to Nikola Jokic, so I'd probably go there. Murray's probably a better shooter too. So I think those are probably two things.
I agree with you. I think he's a significantly better shooter. And I think
Mitchell's a chucker, man. He's a chucker.
Well, just to be frank, I don't think either of them are first options on a title team.
No.
And Murray knows exactly how to play off of a great player.
Right.
And how many times do you need to see Jamal Murray elevate his game in the playoffs before you are like, all right, I'm not going to judge him because he averages 21 and 5 a game. Like he's terrifying, dude. He can shoot the shit out of the ball from everywhere on the court.
Yeah. He's got a dog in him. Comments bring up prime Brandon Roy, by the way, who was one of my favorite players growing up.
That's not a terrible comp either.
Another guy whose knees gave out on him. I thought this dude was going to be just as good as like Dwayne Wade or something like that. Different type of player, but like
he was for like a year and a half. You're right. Yeah, no. I mean, it's like rough. I hate watching that with players where it's just the legs go and like what do you really do with it? It's just rough. All right, I'm going to end it on this. So we're talking about favorite ex-Warriors. Obviously, it has a tilt to when we were both kids. What player would you want to put on this current team? And we're not gonna take Barron or Gilbert because they're yes, I'd like to put Baron Davis on the Warriors. Even though
you go first, I think you know my answer.
Well, I was hoping you go first so I could think about my answer.
All right, I got you. So the answer that I was going to give was going to be easy. I was going to go Andres, because he's a very good rim runner. He was a decent defender at his size. Wasn't scared of catching and lobbing and going to the rim. Pretty smart player. I don't know how much passing he has in his game, but they probably could have unlocked some using him in Steve Kerr's system. I think Andres Biedrins would be a perfect energy big. Honestly, right now, the Warriors, what they're missing is Andres Biedrins. They are hoping that Trace Jackson Davis fills that role. Trace Jackson Davis, kind of the same, like, hey, undersized, little energy, right? So I think Andres for me, that's number one, dude. That is the guy that I need on this team.
I'm going curveball. They need Mike Dunleavy.
Oh my God.
Honestly, they could use. He's a 4 or 5 in today's NBA. Let's be honest. He can shoot the hell out of the ball. But my answer isn't going to be that. My answer is actually going to be Al Harrington.
That's a good one. It's a great one.
Well, I don't know. Al Harrington is the epitome of an enigma. The dude had the perfect stretch big man skill set. Some games he brought it against the Dallas Mavericks and in that playoff run with We Believe, he brought it. But there's a lot of nights where he had a nice 2 for 8 and did nothing type of stuff. I think we should go with Steven Jackson, honestly. Yeah, I know you're not a Stack Jack guy. He's a little bit of a chucker, but just a big wing dog feels like the safest bet for me.
Yeah, a lot of the ball in his hands, a lot of turnovers, a lot of techs, just a lot of Draymond shades of Draymond Green for me. But
yeah, it's very Draymond-ish. Yeah, very Draymond-esque.
A good one. You go. Al Harrington's an interesting one. No Monte Love though. No like score off the bench. Get you 10 quick ones. Right.
Like, I'm looking at the current Warriors. Aside from if you could add a Barron or a Gilbert who are superstars, you do it. Like they're not hurting for guards, you know. Right. I'm looking to add a 3, 4, or 5. You know,
get Troy Murphy in there.
Someone goes Mully in the chat. Like, yeah, sure. Mully be great, but like even that, that's I want a 4 or 5. If you're telling me, I mean, I guess the obvious answer is Wilt. Yeah, let's throw.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I mean, neither of us are watching. GSW CBA throws in Brandon Rush, by the way, another guy whose knees fell apart, but he was a great 3-and-D player.
Robert Parrish. I'm trying to limit it to players I actually watch play regularly, guys. So, I didn't even feel comfortable throwing Chris Webber out there, rookie Webber, but I don't know. Wanted it there. All right, man. Appreciate you. You got here.